Hello and welcome to week 5 of lifespan development. This week we're going to be focusing on the toddler period, so from about the first birthday through the second birthday, and then next week we'll enter early childhood, which is from like 2 to 5ish when you start school. But this week from 1 to 2, that's it, toddler period. And I'm going to start this off by answering some of your questions from last week, starting with class questions. So, do we have homework every week? Yes, there is a homework assignment every week of the semester. Because this is an online class, that's kind of the only way you can show that you're learning is by doing homework. Otherwise, I can assign readings, but how do I know you're doing them? 2, where did you get your mug? My mug, my beautiful mug. I love my mug. My mug is from Edgecombe Pottery. It's a small pottery up in Maine. You can Google it. They have a website. Can you show us how to do an APA citation? Yes, so the best place to go in terms of resources for different types of citation styles is called Purdue OWL, which stands for Purdue University's Online Writing Lab. I will link to that in the description below, or the notes if you're looking at this on the PowerPoint slides. But I can also just go over it briefly. So how you do an APA citation for a book, like you had to do for last week, is you start with the author, last name, then first initial, then the date in parentheses, just the year, then italicized the title, followed by the publisher. And it's that simple. Author, date, title, publisher. Voila. Are we supposed to start reading the biographies now, or do we have to wait until the person we chose is approved? If you did not get an email from me, then your choice is approved. Go ahead, have fun, do what you do. If you did get an email from me, then I kind of need an email back, and it's because there was some kind of problem with what you submitted last Friday, or that you didn't submit anything last Friday. But yeah, so if you did not get an email from me about your case study subject this weekend, then you are all good to go. Go right ahead and get started. If we can't buy the biography, are we allowed to use a PDF version that's online and free? Yes, but don't tell me. Like, if you can get a pirated copy of the book, that's not something you tell your professor, but I don't care. If you can't afford to buy the book or you don't want to spend the money, that's fine. That's what libraries are for. So if you are on campus, it is free to get any book in the world through the library, through interlibrary loan, and I can help set that up for you. Though you can also just go to the library or email one of the librarians at the library and they can help you do it too. If you are not on campus, we can do this through your local library. At most, it'll cost you like $1. However, for the most part, we should be able to make it work without you spending any money whatsoever, whether that's your library already has the book, or a lot of libraries now have digital subscriptions to various apps like Hoopla or Overdrive, which have very large libraries, and we can find a biography in one of those that you can use through your local public library. If you are not on campus and you don't have a library card number, I can help you with that. We can get you a library card. It's free. It'll be fine. If for some reason you don't want to go through the library and you can't find it online, not that I should know about that, and you don't want to buy it, then I can help you find a used copy online, and I can probably find it for you for like under $10, maybe 15 with shipping. But yeah, so email me if you're having difficulty getting your hands on the book, and we will make this work. The last thing I want is to put any kind of stress on you. Will the exams incorporate all of the content we went over up until that date? Yes, so the midterm will cover the first half of the semester. The final exam will cover the second half of the semester, plus a little bit, like I might ask you to apply a theory to the entire lifespan, so technically covering the first half of the semester too, but not really. For the most part, the final exam focuses on the second half, the midterm focuses on the first half. And no, there is no study guide provided because all of the exams are open book. So you don't need a study guide. Sorry. That's it for the class questions. So now we will move on to the content questions. Tansy, must you do that right now? I'm teaching the students. She's being silly on the floor. Oh, and now she's going to come say hi. Okay. Hello. Hello. Okay. Do you want to answer content questions? You want to answer content questions? Okay. So, one question I have is only Simone supposed to be held more upright because of her digestive issues, or is this for all infants? It is mostly for Simone, and I'm going to have to make Tansy get up right now. Okay, so I got up to go get my doll. So this is Amy, and she's going to stand in for Simone for a minute. So the reason Simone needed to be propped up is she had reflux. So her esophageal sphincter, which is about here on you, or here on the doll, is weak. And because of this, it wasn't closing up properly. And so when she laid down flat, her stomach contents could kind of go up her throat a little bit, and that's what was causing the reflux. However, if you prop the baby up a little bit so that she's on an angle like this, gravity comes into work and it doesn't put as much stress on the esophageal sphincter, and thus she doesn't reflux as much. She doesn't get sick as often. And it helps because then the stomach acid isn't irritating her throat, it isn't irritating her mouth, and it keeps her happier and calmer because, it hurts after a while. So yes, it's just a Simone thing. It's not uncommon for babies to have reflux, especially brand new babies. So just, propping her at an angle, it helps a little bit, but it's mostly a Simone thing. Oh, and there was also a question about visual distance and why babies can only see 10 inches. And there's a really cool reason for that. So if you have a baby and you are nursing that baby, the distance from my face to the baby's face, if I am nursing this baby, is about 10 inches. So on average, it is the distance that a mother's face is from her baby, and that's why they can see 10 inches. Which I just think is nifty. Evolution at work. Next question. What were the correct 5 principles you were looking for in the discussion? So the 5 principles of research are beneficence and malfeasance, justice, integrity, responsibility, and respect for autonomy. So those are the 5 principles of ethical research, the 5 principles of research. And that's why I wanted you to go over them and then talk about the ethics. And so based on those 5 criteria, was the experiment that you viewed ethical in your opinion? Can the mother's breast milk be toxic to the baby? Not really. So, and there's a caveat to this. If the baby has an allergy and the mother eats the thing the baby is allergic to, then yes, the baby can have an allergic reaction. It's usually a minor allergic reaction. They don't go into anaphylaxis or anything. But for instance, if the baby is allergic to strawberries and the mother eats strawberries, they might get some hives on their face or somewhere because the protein or whatever it is they're allergic on in the strawberries came through the mother's breast milk. And so now they're a little itchy. And so if the baby is having continuous allergic reactions and is exclusively breastfeeding, it is not uncommon for the mother to then be told to go on an elimination diet so that they can try and figure out what the baby is allergic to. And then once they have that isolated, the mom can eat whatever she wants other than that one thing. What kind of conditioning was shown by Simone with the preference for being held by her mother? So Simone actually showed both types of conditioning, and the point of the question was for you to apply logic and to explain. So some of you explained both and you got full points. Some of you only explained one. If your explanation was correct, you still got full points, because what I just wanted you to take a side and explain that side. Classical conditioning is where you associate a neutral stimulus with a positive or negative result. So Simone associated her mother with cessation of being hungry, and thus she began to prefer her mother. Then there's the operant conditioning, where you learn where you learn to associate a voluntary behavior with a specific outcome. She did show operant conditioning in learning to cry for her mother. So the voluntary behavior was her crying. She learned that if she cried, her mother would come and her mother would feed her. So that was the voluntary behavior. Do we still hold any baby-like tendencies as adults? Some people do. A very common one is liking a certain amount of constriction. So babies like to be swaddled. They like to have that pressure against them. And you see this in adults too, especially the weighted blankets that are really popular for people with anxiety right now. That is the same concept as being swaddled. It's adding a little bit of pressure. That's also why we like hugs. We find hugs comforting because it's pressure. It's protecting us. So yes, there are certain baby-like things that also follow through into adulthood. Good girl. Okay, so that is it for this week. Hopefully that answered most of your questions. If you have any more questions, you can email me, and then of course I'll be back next week answering more of your questions.